What's up, everyone? This is Steve from Bloom Audio, and today we have the Svanar, all new single dynamic driver IEM from HIFIMAN. HIFIMAN is a brand that's become synonymous with high quality, planar magnetic over ear headphones. So, when you hear that they've released a single dynamic driver IEM, might be a little skeptical. When you hear that it costs $2,000, you might be even more skeptical. So, the question we want to ask in this review is: does HiFi-Man Svanar offer the same level of quality in a dynamic driver IEM that HiFi-Man typically delivers in their planar magnetic headphones? And can it compete in the $2,000 range with all the other great IEMs out there right now? Let's take a closer look. As we mentioned, Svanar is a single dynamic driver IEM that uses HiFi-Man's topology driver. It's rated at 60 ohms impedance and the sensitivity is 100 dB. Svanar isn't particularly flashy, with a simple design and a two-piece shell that uses aluminum and brass. It's lightweight, comfortable fit. While the aluminum front portion honestly didn't wow me, I actually really love the look of the brass portion that's resting up against your ear. Again, they're sort of just inspired by musical instruments with this, and the brass on that does kind of give you some taste of a high quality trumpet or French horn in the design. The packaging is nice, but the included accessories don't necessarily hold up too well in the $2,000 price range right now. The box looks nice, but when you get it inside, there's a selection of 2 and 3 flange ear tips. I didn't find any of them to be particularly comfortable and ended up, after failing to get a good comfortable seal, just switching to my typical spin fits. The cable is pretty functional. I found it to be generally free of microphonics and not too bad. But the look of it isn't great, and overall it doesn't feel up to the quality of cables that are being included with, Empire Ears or a number of other brands out there, Noble Audio being another one that tends to include a higher quality cable at this stage. In addition, there's ear hooks and some additional 2-pin adapters with pieces to secure those. But all in all, it's a functional package. Doesn't quite wow at the $2,000 range. While there's aspects of the design or the packaging that feel like they come up a little short, the sound more than makes up for it. When I'm thinking about dynamic driver IEMs, I think there's 3 key ways that dynamic drivers excel over other driver types, and that's in very natural timbre and delivery. The other thing is, again, when you're dealing with a hybrid or tribrid versus a single dynamic driver, just getting a highly cohesive sound. And then the third element is going to be in the bass, delivering a dynamic, powerful bass. And Svanar does all 3 of these things and actually excels in some other ways I didn't entirely expect from it. The overall tuning feels pretty close to a Harman neutral sound. There's that slightly elevated and well extended bass, a treble that again has a little bit of accentuation, but then sort of rolls off into the upper treble for a slightly smooth top end. And the mids are pulled back just slightly, but still very present. Not a V shape, just a slight pullback to make room for a little bit of extra bass and treble there. This isn't a bass head IEM, but it is an IEM that delivers a good amount of bass impact and strong bass presence there, along with really good extension into the sub bass. So the bass hits hard when you need to, but feels well balanced, not exaggerated at any point. Just that little bit of extra oomph that most people are looking for in the low end on an IEM. And your transition up into the mids is clean. I didn't really detect any bloat or bleed up into that mid-range from the bass. The mids are well balanced with, again, a natural timbre and this feeling of cohesion overall. There is a good sense of layering and separation, but cohesion is really one of the key words here, I think, in the mid-range, where everything feels part of the larger whole, and it also feels highly coherent with the way it's all tuned. So again, you get a little bit of elevation from the upper mids into the treble, so you end up, with the exception of, I think, some lower male vocals, the vocal presentation is pretty strong overall. But as you get into that upper treble, you do roll off a little bit. So don't expect a ton of sparkle in air here, but overall solid treble presence. Soundstage is excellent, a really strong width and depth and a great sense of three-dimensionality overall. In the imaging, again, there's good separation, but a really strong sense of blending, of cohesion in the presentation of the image. So you get that good separation, and you also get just a weight and a thickness, a feeling that the space is filled up with sound, where it doesn't sound congested, just full. There's a fullness to it that is balanced with the general sense of the imaging and placement. I think just creates a really strong, immersive 3D image. With that 100 dB sensitivity, Svanar does great with good number of sources, but you also have to see that 60 ohm impedance, and I did feel like, more so than most IEMs, Svanar liked the high gain mode or the ultra gain mode on A and K devices. It did really well with some more high powered headphone amps. For example, I had it plugged into the Headamp GSX Mini with a 6.3 millimeter adapter, and that just really opened it up. I felt like there was some extra clarity, some better dynamics, and that bigger width overall and a more open feeling. So if you have some more powerful headphone amps, Svanar is a great IEM to plug into one of those and just, again, get a little bit more juice, a little more dynamics out of it, and really elevate it a little bit more to the next level. And it definitely tolerates that more than most IEMs. Again, without feeling like it's losing too much on a portable DAP or anything else like that. For IEMs, we brought in two for comparison. One is basically the reigning single dynamic driver IEM champ. That's the final A8000. It's a little bit of a classic at this point. And the other is something pretty much brand new, and that's the Campfire Solaris Stellar Horizon, which offers some similar things in terms of the soundstage and an overall natural sort of delivery. So I thought it was a good comparison here to one of the latest in the $2,000, $2,500 range, and pretty much the classic's best single dynamic driver IEM that also goes for the same retail as Svanar. When it comes to the visual and aesthetic elements, there's not too much of a contest here. A8000 and Solaris both have their own unique style and their own unique brand, from Final and Campfire in the presentation, but they're definitely both a step above Svanar and do a little bit more from the visual presentation to make you believe this is a flagship product. Now, with that said, we don't spend a lot of time looking at the box after opening it, and a lot of us also tend to swap out cables, tips, and other things. Typically, I put the original tips right back in the IEM box and put on my personal preference anyway. So that might not be a big deal outside of just that initial feeling you get from opening up a box and feeling like this is really high quality, well presented. When it actually comes to the comfort and ergonomics, I actually found Svanar might be the best of the three, where A8000 still has some issues in terms of getting a secure fit, a deep enough fit with the design. Solaris is a little heavier. So Solaris and Svanar are probably about the same in terms of comfort and fit, with Solaris just being a touch heavier, maybe giving a slight edge to Svanar. As someone whose tuning preference leans a little bit towards the warm neutral end, Svanar strikes me as having the best overall tonal balance here. Um, Going back and forth, you can kind of see how Solaris does really excel in the mid range over Svanar, where it does have that extra bit of weight. It brings more of the vocals, again, particularly the male vocals that can get a little left behind in Svanar. Solaris elevates them a little bit, and both Solaris and A8000 have a little bit more sparkle up top and stronger resolution there. In terms of that sort of technical speed and resolution, that is where A8000 excels, and it still feels unmatched to me in that sense of resolution, while Solaris is also a little bit stronger than Svanar there. But A8000 in particular seems to sacrifice a little bit of timbre for that speed. So in comparing with acoustic instruments and orchestral instruments between A8000 and Svanar, Svanar felt a little bit more natural to me, while I did still feel like A8000 was giving me just a little bit more of that high-end detail, a little bit more of that micro detail in the feeling, the bowing of the violin is a big one I hear, or that little bit of breath in a female vocal that A8000 can still give you that Svanar can't, while the overall presentation I might give the edge to Svanar. In terms of the imaging and soundstage presentation, I felt Solaris did have the widest stage. I think overall the most vivid imaging here. Svanar is really close in the soundstage department though. And again, I think that sense of cohesion is really strong from doing this all with a single driver, where Solaris presents some stronger separation, but doesn't have that sort of rich sense of blending. I think with a single dynamic driver IEM that's really well tuned, you do get a little bit more of a over your headphone like sense of cohesion, which Svanar provides. That is the one way I think it excels over Solaris. And with A8000, again, all those elements are really strong. Doesn't feel as wide, and the imaging doesn't feel quite as vivid as on Svanar or Solaris. Between the three, there's definitely a lot to like in each. Svanar is probably the most versatile and might be closest to sort of a daily driver sort of IEM for me in terms of the overall tonal balance. But you pull up Solaris, and again, you're getting some of that mid-range, more of that resolution in the highs, and a little bit more of those finer details that you miss out on from the upper treble and that sparkle and air range. And A8000, again, still remains unmatched in the speed and resolution, even if I think Svanar really beats it in terms of the overall tonality and timbre. In a world where tribrids and quadbrids aren't just occupying that $3,000 and on up flagship range, but trickling down all throughout the price spectrum, single dynamic driver IEM at $2,000 has a lot to prove. And I think Svanar really does prove its worth here with just a highly versatile, highly natural sound that also brings good technical performance. Svanar might just be the best single dynamic driver IEM on the market right now. Thanks for watching. You can check out Svanar and a lot of other great products at bloomaudio.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be back soon with more high fidelity audio content.